Hey guys, today I was thinking about my dad. My dad had passed just a few years ago, and I was kind of sketching out key moments that I can remember that my dad really made an impact in my life. Specific things that he's either said or done that just really stand out to me. And I can remember this one particular encounter when I was 14. It was very traumatic, I remember at the time, but my dad obviously knew what he was doing in the moment. And it was that age when I kind of knew everything and I wasn't really listening to anybody, and I was pretty disrespectful with my mom, and I was never ever going to be disrespectful to my mom in front of my dad. My dad was a 22-year naval officer, just very strict. He loved us. He told us he loved us every day before we went to bed, but my dad just was very firm. And I knew that. And so one day I was in the house and my mom and I were disagreeing, and I didn't know my dad was in the house. And I remember I raised my voice at my mom in a pretty disrespectful way. And my dad was in the adjacent room, and Dad came around the corner and he looked at me. And I remember he looked at me and he said, "What did you say to your mother?" And I just stood there, just speechless. And my dad looked at me and he said, "You've got 10 minutes. Go to your room, get your suitcase, pack your things, get out of this house." And I knew my dad was serious. My mom is looking at my dad, and my mom is so upset. She's saying, no, don't do that, don't do that. And my dad looked at me and goes, "Pack them." I went in there in my room and I stood there for about 5 minutes, just bewildered, not sure what I was going to do, trying to think about whose house am I going to go to. My dad came back in there about 5 minutes and he saw that I had not got my suitcase out. He goes, "You got 5 minutes." And I got my suitcase and I was crying. I just started crying. I started getting my my shorts and pants and shoes and packed my little suitcase, and I went out to the living room, and my dad was standing there. And I remember my dad looked at the front door and he points to the front door, just points. And I was crying, and I walked out that front door and I'm standing in our driveway. And we had a back house that my dad would go back to, and he would just read during the day or study or do whatever he was doing. And my dad went to the back house. He had done his job in the house. He'd gone to the back house, and I'm standing there with my suitcase in the front driveway. And my mom comes out there and she's begging me to go to my dad and apologize to him and tell him that I'm sorry and that I won't do that again. And I just didn't know what to do. And so probably after about 20 minutes, I ended up walking all the way to the back house. I still remember there was the screen door. My dad was sitting there in his white t-shirt behind the desk, and I remember he had a pencil in his hand and he was just writing. And I tapped on the door and he looked up and he said, "Come in." And I went inside and I looked at him and I said, "Dad, what I said to Mom is wrong. It was disrespectful. And I'm really sorry. I won't ever do that again. And I just wanted to know if I could just come back home." Remember my dad, he set the pencil down and he looked at me and he said this. He said, "Son, I love you and your brother more than anything." He said, "I would never want you to leave this house, but I want you to know something. I love your mom more than anything else in this world. And if it came down between me picking your mom or picking you guys, I will always pick your mother." And he said, "It doesn't mean I don't love you guys, but it does mean that you will respect your mother, and I will never tolerate you speaking to her that way." He said, "Do you understand?" I said, "Yes, sir." And that was it. I turned around, I walked out, I went into the house, unpacked my suitcase, apologized to my mom. And it's interesting just in that moment that my dad was more concerned about my character formation, the young man that I was becoming, and that he knew that respect towards authority was one of the most important things in my development. And I was struggling with respect with authority. And in that moment, my dad made a decision. And I'm sure it was not easy on him, but it made a big impact on me. It made a huge impact on me. And I've always remembered my dad talking about his love for my mom, for his wife, being so great that he would not tolerate his son or sons ever being disrespectful to her. It's always stuck with me. So I share this because just as all of us pursuing excellence in life, pursuing just being greater leaders in life, just the commitment to character formation for the people around us, for ourselves, that it should be at the top of the list. That even though we all fail, we all struggle, that we have to strive to make sure that we're not just making sure everybody's happy and everybody's okay, but we want to make sure that everybody understands what's true. Because what's most important is the people that we are all becoming along the way. So I wanted to just tell that story, a little insight as I thought about my dad, how powerful that moment was at 14 years of age and the impact that it's had on me as a 51-year-old man today, that I'm grateful for that moment as hard as it was. So I hope that encourages you and makes you think a little bit about character formation in your life and in the people around you.